Oh, hey, are we on? Hi, everybody. Oh, it's Sunday, August 27th, 2023. Leslie Plazz here, Zazoo Plazz. And day before school over here at the school, this used to be my quiet spot. I got out here, I don't even know, it's like 2:30 in the afternoon. And they got all the machines going. So I dropped my sticky note. They got all the machines, all the weed whacking and gotta cut all the grass. They finished the addition over here, and they stuck the basketball hoops up with like 2 inches of space for the kids to play. What the hell fun is that? Anyway, this is not turning into the Zazoo Plazz retort, but I might lapse into it a couple of times. So just a fair warning. So yeah, I come out here at night and I'm looking over my shoulder for, people to kick me off. See, supposedly my friend is looking out for me, but why do I feel like I'm trespassing? Even though this is, during the day, there's a little path here for people to walk their dogs, so I'm not doing anything, I shouldn't be doing. And I live right over there. So I've got to find a place, if there is such a place in the world, where I can go and be outside and do my little report and have, enjoy nature. That's my goal. And, it works. It really fits all together. Because, today's reading, I'm just going to start off. Oh, yep, Zazoo Plazz report. Yeah, we got Matthew's Gospel here. Why not start with the readings today? Because that's where I always jump off. I was raised Catholic, so it's kind of like the reading today. Jesus saying he's building the rock of his church, the beginning of it all on St. Peter, right? Because Peter got it. You never have that one friend who just gets you, You're like, who do you see me as, right? It's that one friend who'll say, oh my God, you're whatever. I've got this one friend, she's known me since I was 3 years old. And, I'm sure she would have some things to say about who I am. But it's kind of like that. You've got a couple people, if you're lucky in your life, who really see you for who you are, right? And, and then you go along in life, maybe you're online and you encounter a few people who, sort of get your sense of humor. They come from where you come from. Even if they live around the world or whatever, you read something they write and you go, wow, I thought I was the only person in the world who thought that way. Come to find out, you're not, right? So that's kind of like the Christ consciousness, right? Where God is in everything and part of everything. And, you might have this one friend who's kind of like, sees that, sees that part of you that is, not bound to, is not your friend because you wear a certain kind of jeans, or you drive a certain car, but because they feel really good when they're around you and they want to see you because you're fun, Anyway, something like that, right? Those people that you just gravitate toward, right? Because you enjoy the same things. Well, that's kind of like, Jesus, he's talking to Peter. He's like, who do you see? Who do you see when you look at me? What do you see? And Peter kind of gets it. He's like, well, you're the Christ. You're, God's son. He gets it because, probably because Peter, went to a quiet place, and God was able to get through to him and say, pay attention to this guy, Jesus, because and or he just decided, it's got to be you because, I've seen you do these things. It's got to be you. All these other guys, they were getting, they were good, but, Peter's been around long enough. Once you've been around long enough, it's like, you've got to be, because I've seen you do these miracles. I've seen you do these things, and that's the way. And different people see us in different ways, don't they? There's a lady I'd follow. She's got pet raccoons, and her meme was, some people call me the crazy raccoon lady. We call you Mom. Reposted that on my page because it's true, right? Some people just look at us and say, how's that crazy lady who's in the woods, every week? What does she know? But, my dog would say, Mom. Anyway, speaking of Mom, my kid's home, the oldest one, and I've got some stories. So he, he's got this friend who's a girl, who's a sophomore at Yale. And because here we are in Connecticut, he went to University of New Haven. He's going to be 23 in a couple weeks. No, a week. Like around Labor Day, it's his birthday. And I know it's different every year, but it's, first week in September. So I'm like, oh, you had this girlfriend. He's like, Mom, friend, it's a Gen Z thing. I said, okay. So you've been going places with her, and she's a girl, and you like her, and it's complicated. I used to say, this is my boyfriend, but apparently it's either not. It's not a thing to say that anymore. I don't know. It makes my head hurt. I said, okay, you're hanging out. He's like, yeah. So he's helping her move into her dorm this past week, I guess, at Yale. And she's a humanities major, okay, arts and sciences, which is why you go to Yale, right? So she's really smart. So talk about luck. This kid is amazing. And I swore I'm not going to post the picture. That's his picture. It's his story, right? But I think I can get away with name dropping a little bit. So, I remember how Jodie Foster went to Yale, and that was a big deal for us in Connecticut. But so he's moving her in to her dorm, and just out of the blue, he runs into Conan O'Brien, the comedian. Yes, that Conan O'Brien who's had his own show. I don't know if he even still has it. That Conan O'Brien, moving his daughter, who's, I think, my youngest son's age. He's a junior at UConn. So I think she's a junior at Yale. My son, who is just with this girl, helping her move in, but he's not her boyfriend, runs into Conan O'Brien and asks if he can have his picture taken with him. To which Conan says, sure, puts his arm around my son and takes a picture with him while he is moving his daughter into Yale. I said, did you tell him by chance that you have a mom who's trying to get some visibility for her book and her videos, who is, getting live out here in the woods? While you're over at Yale, just happen to run into famous comedians. He's like, Mom, he wouldn't have cared about you. Okay. I'm going to hashtag this to Conan O'Brien. Hi, Conan. That was my son, Ben, that you posed with last week. Thank you for doing that. And you sound like a great guy. But, when you're moving your kid in, that's what your focus is on, right? He's in family mode. Ben is right. He didn't want to hear about work. When you're with your kid, you're enjoying that time. And I respect that. And, you know, I have more respect for him that he is that kind of a person. You know, he's just a regular guy moving his daughter into the dorm. And anybody who's moved a kid into a dorm, my dad can attest, it's not an easy thing. Because, you know, even if there's an elevator, which there wasn't, when I moved into BC in the fall of in August of 1983, 40 years ago, is that right? Yeah, I started at Boston College 40 years ago. My dad was swearing. Well, for him it was for crying out loud, because I was on the frickin' third floor of a three-floor dorm. It was called Claver, Loyola, and Xavier. We called it CLX, because, you know, it's Jesuit school. So the Jocks, the football, you know, team was on the first floor. The second floor was, I think, and, you know, they had girls and boys floors. So it was guys, and then the top couple floors, I think, were girls. I'm not even sure who was on the second floor. It might have been another guy's floor. But it was all girls on the top. That's where I was. Room 3, what was it, 310 or something like that. It was 3 something. And, yeah, so it's funny. Yeah, so that's a story for another day. But my dad had to carry all my stuff, which for girls is, you know, it's clothes, and we had typewriters. I had an electric typewriter that weighed a ton. And plus, you know, books, crates of books. Kids don't have books anymore. They have books and milk crates. I had all these books, and you know, my dad and I, we had to, it was mostly me and my dad, but mostly my dad bringing all the stuff, 3 flights of stairs, no air conditioning, right? After driving 2 hours from Connecticut to Boston in the worst traffic, you know, borrowing my Uncle Dave's truck, because, you know, we didn't have, you know, my parents had practical Japanese cars. You could fit about a couple of suitcases in them. We borrowed my Uncle Dave's truck that we had like a bar going across. It had a cap on the, you know, pickup truck with a cap on the back. I think it was red. Because, I mean, thank God we had his truck, because I couldn't have made it through 4 years of school, you know? They had all my clothes on the bar, and then we had all my stuff in the back, and it fit nicely. And we all pile into the, you know, into the cab part. And that's how I went up to Boston from Connecticut with about 50 million other kids going up to all those schools in Boston. My dad swearing, we get up there. So we'd always go out to eat. You know, they'd drop me off and then they'd take me out to eat. My mom would leave me with some apples, you know, some snacks. And she, you know, she put everything, freshman year, she made my bed. She put everything up. The minute she was out of sight, I rearranged everything. I didn't think I was going to talk about this today, but the minute she was out of sight, I just moved everything, just 'cause I could, you know. And I had, on my wall, I had a Texas fly swatter, which is about that big, and it was a gag thing, you know, but it came in handy, because, you know, you'd leave the door, the flies would come in, and we didn't have these fancy schmancy dorms, you know, these kids have today. We had cinder block walls with, you know, windows that there was a screen, but it was kind of like a crank out thing. And, you know, we lived on a street with, like, there were dorms across from these old Tudor houses. You know the ones, the brown, like brown and white. The whole town was like these old, big old houses. So, you know, it was pretty cool, but there they go again. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, my roommate and I freshman year had nothing in common. Nothing. She was from Yonkers, New York, and I had never heard of Yonkers. Yonkers or Flushing? Flushing. Yeah, it was like the toilet. Flushing, Queens, right? And she was from a Chinese-American family. She had punk hair, like straight up black, you know, like And I was this little preppy kid with the polo shirt and the khaki shorts. I have a picture. I'm going to do a story on it. You know, very nice girl, but she was an education major, and like I was a business major, and I don't think we even had one complete conversation in the whole time I was there. But yeah, so, and then my son's girlfriend, I don't know if she's Korean American or Chinese American, but anyway, it reminded me of me and my roommate. we took one awkward picture together, and then we went to the football game. She met some girls. She went off with them and left me sitting there in the stadium by myself. I think we played Temple. Anyway, I deviate. But, so that's a big story. And then, okay, so, and then I wanted to say a quick note that, rest in peace, Bob Barker, who was, talk about a rock. Peter and the Rock. Bob Barker was that kind of person in my life on TV. He was like the Rock, not the Rock, the guy, but he was a steady presence in my life. Oh my God. Anyway, between Price is Right, Truth or Consequences was the show I used to watch as a kid. And it would be after dinner, I'd be in my pajamas. I was like 4 or 5 years old. My mom said I could watch one show. And bedtime was like 7:30 when I was 5, 6, 8 o'clock maybe, if I was good. There was the show Truth or Consequences. And there was Bob Barker, he had this Barker's box or something. It was like a red and white striped box, and he pulled people from the audience, and they had to pick something out of the box, and then they had to, answer a question, and if they couldn't answer the question, which nobody ever could, then they had to go and do a stupid stunt. They had to pay the consequences. So I'm like, oh, so I looked up the Barker asteroid. It's at 22 degrees of Scorpio in my chart, which is like, it's so perfect. I can't think with that loud racket. Anyway, so I'll talk about that another time. I hate lawn mowers. Anyway, song of the week. I may have to cut it short because I want to talk about this a little bit. Okay. All right. So the main reading that I'm talking about is, the one where Peter, I'm going to build my rock on you, Jesus says to him. So I said, rock. And then the first thing that popped in my head was, and we begin to rock, steady, steady rocking on. You know that one? 1987, Rock Steady, The Whispers, came out June 13th, 87. I remember going and dancing to that song. And and then you just kind of get into it. Rock steady, steady rock. And that was the summer I started my first job. I graduated college, got my Celica. That was a great summer. That song got up to number 7 in the U.S. late August, 87, which is like now. Yeah, it was New Jack Swing and Funk. It got to number 1 on the Hot Black Singles chart. Wow. So Babyface wrote it, apparently. Remember Babyface? Wow, he was in a lot of things, did a lot of things. Babyface. You've got the cutest little, never mind. Wow, childhood memories are springing up all over the place now. So yeah, I mean, rock the keys to heaven, right? It's kind of like God gave Peter the keys to heaven. It's like Bob Barker giving you the keys to the new car, right? Say, you passed all the tests, right? You given all the right answers, and you don't have to go through all the humiliating stuff. I mean, Peter does, he does go through his trials, but, it's kind of like, you get to the Price is Right, and you've gotten this far, and now you get to compete at this level for the better prizes. It's kind of like Peter, he kind of leveled up. All those, sheep are down there, but he's kind of up here now. But at the same time as being the head of everything, he's the servant. He ends up, that was the thing, right? Because the lowest is the highest, right? So Peter had to end up being the servant of all, and sort of be like the Bob Barker, right, if you will. The Pope evolved out of this kind of person who got tapped. It's like when you're playing tag, right, and you get tapped, you're it, right? Jesus was setting things up for when he wasn't going to be around anymore, to kind of like Bob Barker, kind of tapped Drew Carey, or they tapped Drew Carey. Drew Carey is like the Peter, like, okay, you're going to take it forward, that's his successor. I don't mean to trivialize, compare Drew Carey, but, to Peter, St. Peter, but, kind of. He's like, you've got the old prophets, you've got the old way of doing things, and then you have the Bob Barker who kind of, he's there for a while and he shakes things up a little, gets things, gives out a few prizes, a few miracles, and, tells you to spay and neuter your dogs and cats, and then he names the successor, and then he can go off, he's named his successor. It's funny how that kind of all worked out. But, okay, so, rock steady, yeah. So what I was thinking was, and then Jesus said, don't tell anybody, now that you all know, that's our little secret. Don't tell them I'm the Christ, because, the Christ is the energy, right? God consciousness. It's the first time that God walked the earth in a human form, right? Everybody else has got, things that they got to work on, right? Karma, Jesus, he had all his stuff worked out, but, he came down here. He had an ego like everybody, right? He had an identity. Who do you say that I am, right? He had an appearance, and people interpret Jesus in different ways, right? But the consciousness that he embodied, the energy, right? The vibe was the thing, Who do you say I mean, you ask somebody about this song, Rock Steady, The Whisper. Some people are going to remember it. Some people won't. But everybody's going to have a different story about where they were when they heard this song, or who they were with, or what it evokes in them. And that's kind of like Christ consciousness. It's kind of, everybody's got a different view of who God is. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Who do you say? So everyone would even have a different experience of those who knew Jesus, I would imagine. I'm just guessing here, right? Because how could it all be the same? They were all different. The apostles were human, like us. So why would we all have the same experience of Jesus, of God? That's ridiculous, right? And then, as the Bible spread, everybody had a different language, a different way of, before you know it, you've got the Greeks doing this thing over here, the Russians doing that thing, you've got, people in, North America, South America, you've got 50 million, trillion, as many different ways of interpreting Christ consciousness as there are people in the world. Not that any of them is better or right, more right than the other. They're all, there's different ways up the mountain. That's the way I see it. I'm not trying to convert anybody. This is the Zazoo Plazz view of things. I'm figuring things out as I go. So, I look at the readings and I look up, Caesarea Philippi, Caesarea Philippi, whatever. You hear these, things in church or whatever. That's why I got mad and I left church, because they took all the missalettes away for the Palm Sunday reading. And I thought, that's the whole reason I went to church, so I could follow along, right? So anyway, sidebar. I looked it up, Caesarea Philippi. I don't know how to pronounce. 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee. Up near this mountain, there's a waterfall. It's a very fertile land, right? This is where Jesus went for this part of Matthew's gospel. And in that area, it's a sacred area, you know? And the Greeks, I guess, used to worship the god Pan, you know, like Peter Pan, right? Who knew? Peter Pan, get it? You know, eternal youth. He was the half man, half goat. Right? So somehow, you know, we're sitting there as Catholics, you know, do you think anybody would ever explain where was Caesarea? You don't know this stuff. It's not like the nuns taught, you know, stuff. Maybe in college if I'd majored in theology, but I've always been self-taught. So God Pan was the Greek god of the wild, shepherds and flocks, rustic music, and they were companions of nymphs, fertility, which is, you know, the line of David. Pan, right, with his magic flute, going around, you know, hanging out with nymphs. That doesn't sound like Christianity, does it? Of course not. Why would they want to be associated with all that? But Jesus was out there. You know, they used to do pagan offerings there at this place. But at least he didn't have to deal with the lawnmowers. I mean, all right? So if you think, you know, a little more carefully about these things and you do your research, you begin to see there's a lot of stuff going on that people probably didn't want to get out. But Jesus was hanging out in sacred, you know, in ancient places that had very spiritual vibes. So there were rocks there, right? Upon this rock. I think that's what he was talking about. In this place, we're making this sacred oath, right? So it's like, all right, why have I never heard about this before? Anyway, the mystery continues. Till next week, I made a big batch of split pea soup, which is my oldest son's nemesis. He hates that. I have to breathe in his food, so he can breathe in mine. I'm gonna go and then I got to go and check and see if I'm gonna have to report for jury duty tomorrow. I'm really hoping I don't. So anyway, there's that. But I've had it. Until next week, I'll feel better once I eat. I always do. So go listen to Rocksteady. Do a little dance, you know, with the nymphs in the forest. Play your flute. Till next week, Zazoo Plazz signing out. Come on down. Or go on up. Whatever. See you next week. Bye-bye.